determine. Madam Speaker, in the public service, officers can, according to the CSO, can be transferred to any position within the public service, fitting their rank and their salary scale and that sort of stuff. And what we are doing here today, Madam Speaker, honorable members, is to ensure that this act provides for better public service for all public servants here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It speaks of the appointment for specific periods. And it states here, a person is appointed for a specified period to the public office, ceases to be a public officer at the expiration of that period. Madam Speaker, as we all know, within the public service, once you're appointed, once your appointment takes effect, within the public service, your period of appointment is given you, will be given to you in determining by the Chief Personal's office when your appointment letter is given to you. And this is what we're ensuring, that within this new piece of legislation, the Public Service Management Act, that whatever is done for the public servants are done for their betterment, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in this period where we are living in very uncertain times with COVID and other viruses that are affecting the public service, we have to ensure that as a responsible government, all public servants, sometimes referred to them as civil servants, have to undergo certain changes, maybe certain prescribed protocols for the proper functioning of the public service. And all of these things we have to take into consideration as we perform the duty and bring these pieces of legislation in place. Madam Speaker, the final clause, clause 11, would empower the Minister of the Public Service to make regulations to give effect to the act, to this act. This clause would also provide that where there is a conflict between the regulations made by the minister and an existing collective agreement, that the collective agreement prevails. In addition, the clause would deem the civil service orders in use and enforce immediately prior to the commencement of this act to have been prescribed under Section 11, thereby converting the civil service orders to regulations, subsidiary legislation. Madam Speaker, I believe that with the passing of this very important piece of legislation, that we would have a better civil service here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where persons understand their roles, their functions, their duties, and so that as they perform them, the role and the functions of the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines would better be carried out. I think on this bill, I think I should rest there. Thank you.
For the debate, I recognize the Honorable Minister of Finance. Honorable Member, you have 45 minutes when you're all set up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, honorable members. No need to take track of the time, Madam Speaker. Very brief intervention. The Honorable Minister for the Public Service has laid out in great detail what this bill is all about. I just wanted to distill what, to my mind, is the crux of the issue in explaining to the public what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. Public servants have, from the beginning of the public service in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, operated in accordance with something we call the public service orders. And very often, people who are hired by contract have in their contracts something saying the terms of the public service orders, civil service orders apply to their contract. And permanent secretaries, years gone by and throughout, and human resource people have referred to the civil service orders to govern the various activities of the public service. How much they get for their advances, their subsistence, their traveling, various matters of discipline, transfer, and all of that. They're all part of these orders. But there was a case, the PSU versus the Ministry of National Security, that involved an individual who was stationed originally in the Grenadines and transferred to the mainland. And the individual thought that their transfer was improper, that it caused hardship, and all the rest of it. One of the arguments raised was that, look, the civil service orders allow us to transfer anybody in the civil service from here to there. And that argument did not win the day in the case. And it wasn't clear in the case. Well, the judge said in the case, look, these civil service orders, they're not statutes, they're not regulations, they're not laws. These are sort of internal documents that you have, internal rules for the management of the way the civil service works. And it wasn't clear in the judgment whether, when the judge said that, when the learned judge said that, whether that was central to her decision, or whether it's what the lawyers call obiter dicta, it's sort of an opinion that was expressed, but not critical to the decision making of the case. So there was this moment of uncertainty since the judgment came down. What is the status of the civil service orders? Can we still apply them as we always have? Or has this judgment now weakened their status within the public service? So the decision was made, and the decision pre-existed because there was talk about this from before, about the legal status of the civil service orders. And originally, the idea within the Ministry of Legal Affairs, as I understand it from the Honorable Attorney General, was that they were going to draft fresh civil service orders. The civil service orders are a fairly old document. They've been around since the pre-independence times. They have some terms that may be a little bit antiquated. So the idea was that they were going to draft fresh civil service orders and make those law. However, once this judgment came, there wasn't time to wait until you draft fresh civil service orders. So the decision was taken, look, we will take the existing civil service orders that deal with appointments, promotions, transfers, conduct of public officers, salaries, acting allowances, advances, subsistence allowance, traveling allowance, hard area allowance, sick leave, other forms of leave, resignation, retirement, and so on and so forth. We'll take what exists. We will make those that are already exist. We will make those into regulations. So they will have the strength of law. And that when the time comes, we can always amend our regulations as we go. But the existing civil service orders would be given the regulatory footing, the legal footing that is necessary to avoid the sort of dicta that we heard from the learned judge, who said, I see your civil service orders, but they're not promulgated in Parliament. They're not promulgated as pursuant to any rulemaking or lawmaking authority. So what you have there is a document. So that is essentially what this legislation is about. It's about bringing the civil service orders from an uncertain status to the status where they have regulatory grounding, and that we hope, and the law provides, that as we go, we will update and modernize those civil service orders, and they will have the proper legislative force. That is essentially what this bill is about, Madam Speaker. I think that the Honourable Minister laid it out in great detail. I don't want to traverse those issues, but I just wanted to let civil servants know, who are probably listening, that it's the same civil service orders that you already know and either love or hate, but those are the ones that are being brought into the ambit of regulations and law at this point. And that's what this is for, and I think that it's useful in light of the recent PSU versus Ministry of National Security decision. I'm obliged.
Further debate? Any further debate? Very well. Honorable Minister, Public Service.
Madam Speaker, I would like to thank the Honourable Minister of Finance for his contribution on this bill, giving some further clarity as to why we are here with this bill this afternoon. And so, Madam Speaker, I move that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause.
Clause 2. That clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 3. That clause 3 stands part of the bill. Clause 4. That clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 5. That clause 5 stands part of the bill. Clause 6. That clause 6 stands part of the bill. Clause 7. That clause 7 stands part of the bill. Clause 8. That clause 8 stands part of the bill. Clause 9. That clause 9 stands part of the bill. Clause 10. That clause 10 stands part of the bill. Clause 11. That clause 11 stands part of the bill. Clause 1. That clause 1 stands part of the bill. Honorable Minister of the Public Service.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the committee rise, the House resumes, and the presiding member reports to the Honourable House.
Honorable members, the question is that the committee rise and the presiding member reports to the Honorable House. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable members, I have the honor to report that a bill for an act to provide for the administration and management of the public service and for related matters has passed the committee stage without amendment. Honorable Minister of the Public Service.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill for an act to provide for the administration and management of the public service and for related matters be read a third time by title and passed.
Honorable members, the question is that a bill for an act to provide for the administration and management of the public service and for related matters be read a third time by title and passed. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Public Service Management Act 2021. Item number 7, Janice May MacDonald Pension Declaration Bill 2021.
Honorable Minister of the Public Service.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, I beg to move the introduction for an act to provide for the payment of retirement benefits to Janice May MacDonald, Senior Library Assistant, be read a first time.
Honorable members, the question is that a bill for an act to provide for the payment of retirement benefits to Janice May MacDonald, Senior Library Assistant, be read a first time. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Minister, Public Service.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, I beg to move on the standing order 42 that this bill be taken through all its stages at this sitting of the House today.
Honorable members, the question is that this bill be taken through all stages at this sitting of the House in accordance with Standing Order 48-2. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Minister.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, I beg to move the second reading of a bill for an act to provide for the payment of retirement benefits to Janice May MacDonald, Senior Library Assistant, be read a second time.
Honorable members, the question is that a bill for an act to provide for the payment of retirement benefits to Janice May MacDonald, Senior Library Assistant, be read a second time. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Debate on the bill. Honorable Minister of Public Service.
Madam Speaker, this bill is one of the normal bills that would come to the Parliament to request the period of non-pensionable service served by a civil servant to be counted for pension purposes. Mrs. Janice May MacDonald began her teaching service career in 1986, and she served in the following positions: student teacher, non-pensionable post, February 1986 to June 30th, 1987. And this is the portion of and then she continued. She worked as a probationary assistant teacher, non-pensionable post, July 1st, 1987 to December 31st, 1987. Library assistant, not pensionable post, January 1, 88 to April 1st, 2007. And then a senior library assistant, a pensionable post, April 2nd, 2007 to January 1st, 2009. So the period that we are looking for here is a period from the 19th of February, 1986 to the 30th of June, 1987, when she was served as a student teacher, is declared as a pensionable post for the computation of retirement benefits. I'm much obliged.
For the debate. Honorable Leader of the
Just to say,
Opposition.
Madam Speaker, I wish Janice May MacDonald a happy and long retirement, that she enjoys her benefits. I have suggested a way in which you should deal with these matters before, that they are not really to come here. They could be dealt with by regulations or some administrative process, so that if the Parliament is delayed, people are not delayed in getting their pensions. But Ms. May MacDonald, I wish you all the best. Enjoy your retirement. Good service.
further debate? Honorable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, every week in cabinet, and I believe the rules say that because we are this far apart and I'm fully vaccinated, I can take off my mask.
Yes, yes.
Thanks.
Honorable Prime Minister.
I'm obliged, Madam Speaker. Every week in cabinet, in relation to public servants, or indeed teachers, within the framework of their existing law. That is to say, if somebody is a public servant all the way through, and they have any non-pensionable service, the law provides administratively for the cabinet authorizes the cabinet to take those years into account, and we do that routinely. Similarly, if someone is a teacher all the time, what happens here is that she was a teacher and she's transferred into the public service, so that the law doesn't provide for the cabinet to do that. These are not the cases which are particularly difficult. There was a time when this was not done, but we do that. But the more difficult cases, and which require comprehensive review of the pension laws, because, Madam Speaker, there is a separate law for teachers' pension, and there's a separate one for the public servants' pensions. And this is when you have the crossover. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, Madam Speaker. So that has to be understood. The ones where we have broken new ground, I'm talking about this government, persons who have not worked with the government, but who, and these persons are particularly teachers, who work, say, for instance, with the Anglican trustees at the Bishop's College, or with the Roman Catholic Church at St. Martin's, or if you have an individual school like how you used to have Emmanuel High School, which is now J.P. Eustace. There's one in Mespo, which is still run through that private operation. The Adventists create a particular constitutional difficulty, which I can explain. That is where those persons are paid by the government, Madam Speaker, but not employed by the government. That the Anglican trustees will employ a teacher and ask if the government can pay. And we, of course, pay them. What do you do with those persons, with the service? They teach people's children. But they're not employees of the government. The Pension Act None of the pension acts recognize that. Now, to review it requires, there are certain challenges. And until they can sort that out for us properly in the legal department, and until other reforms come into play, what do? You sit back and allow those persons to go home without anything? No. Madam Speaker, I decide that we will bring specific pension bills for those. We can't address those by way of any regulation. You have to change the act itself, making somebody who is not employed by the government get a pension from the government. You see the conundrum, Madam Speaker, honorable members. There is a variation of that particular case too. The variation involves where the person was once employed by, say, the Anglican or the Catholics or any other a denominational group or an individual entity, but sometime afterwards, Madam Speaker, they become employed with the government. Do you ignore that period of their service? They taught people children. And we said, yes, by doing this, what I'm suggesting, we have dozens we have benefited. And until that is sorted out in an omnibus legislative manner, I'm not going to let people go home without something. Never. This is a Labour government. Never will it be done. The other variation there, Madam Speaker, is where someone didn't work at all at any period for the government, but taught all the years. But the school doesn't have any particular pension arrangement, the religious denomination. What you do with those? We have to also bring them in, and we have done that. I'm giving it the variations. Now, a lot of people before our time went home without anything, They went home without anything. And Madam Speaker, for the first couple of years, I was in office and I kept talking about this. They say, yes, they have to change the law. Until I said, one day, you know what happened? If that is not being done, or done with enough speed, and if you tell me about this technical issue and that technical issue, I will come with separate bills. Because the persons who are home benefiting from the species, the different types that I'm talking about, being concerned whether it's done in an omnibus fashion or if I have to bring them here individually. Let them enjoy their retirement. It's not only that, Madam Speaker. Since we're talking about retirement, I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to let this go, but once the Honorable Leader of the Opposition tried to make it appear as though it's so simple, I'm giving the background and the history and the complexities. Public, there's a category of persons, nursing assistants, and I want them to hear me loud and clear. And some of them are saying, Ralph wants us to take the vaccine. And I don't want to take the vaccine. You ain't like us. It's the same man who made sure that nursing assistants become pensionable for the first time. The love which I have for them is not divisible, you know. It's one love. One indivisible love for them. For the nursing assistants, for the nurses, the doctors, the civil servants, the teachers, the police, the prison officers, all government employees. And it's this government also which carried out a remarkable reform in salaries called the reclassification, completed in 2007, which caused for fantastic jumps in salary. On an average, across the board, close to 70%. The police did even better. You know that. And when you get it better there, you get it better in retirement. All of these things are part of the reform and modernization of the public service, in which just now, the just passed bill, the Public Service Management Bill, Madam Speaker, I'm not debating that because that has gone. I'm just putting it within the context. Because what is in that? There is no new provision, you know. What is in that is essentially a codification of everything which exists, but to put it in a sound statutory framework so that there can't be questioning or dancing about this matter, for the good of public servants and for the good of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I leave with this reform. There are more, you know, Madam Speaker, but I leave with this. You see these teachers and public servants whom we are bringing bills for? You know, from 1970 until 2001, they couldn't open their mouth and talk about any public policy or anything at all unless they got the permission from the permanent secretary and then through the minister. There was a bill called the Public Officers Conditions of Employment Act, Madam Speaker, which criminalized speech by public servants, by police, by teachers. We removed that. At the stroke of a legislative pen, one of the first bills we brought to this house as a Labour government is to repeal that law. It was brought in by the old Labour Party government, former Labour Party government, at the time when Parnell Campbell, God bless his soul, and Corwin Morris and the so-called Black Power boys, as they used to call them, talking and writing. But the NDP remained in office for nearly 17 years and didn't touch it until the arrival of the Comrade and the Unity Labour Party. You hear me? So I don't worry about people talking, you know. I worry about people busting my head. Not talking. Talking ain't worrying me. And there's more to say, Madam Speaker. What I did was just give a little taste. I hear the saying in Lay, you know, some of my supporters. Well, boy, look as though when they bust Ralph head, he make the head spin up even more and brighter than ever before. And got more energy and creativity than ever before. That's what they say in Lay, you know. But I like some people, it's not brightness I'm concerned about. Because there's two kinds of brightness. Brightness, Madam Speaker, which blinds, and brightness which illuminates. Brightness which blinds, you drive in your SUV and I drive in mine. And we come into each other. We're so bright we can't see one another. That's what's happening over this thing with the vaccine, you know. Some people so bright they can't see. They're blinded with one another brightness. Even some people playing doctor. The best form of brightness is that which illuminates. And the illumination can only take place, Madam Speaker, in communion with people. I rest my case. I'm obliged.
For the debate. Okay, Honorable Minister of Public Service.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the leader of the opposition, but just to tell him that Janice May is not the first and only person who has been receiving these benefits. And I want to say to him that I'm happy that she would be receiving her benefits also, and to thank the Prime Minister for his very important input into this bill here this afternoon, so that Janice May and all others who like her would, when they come to the stage of retirement, they know that they can put their pot on the fire, that this government, the Unity Labour Party government, would ensure that their pensions are secured and safe and ready for them whenever that time comes. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause.
Second motion.
Clause 2, that clause 2 stands part of the bill.
Aye.
Clause 1, that clause 1 stands part of the bill.
Aye.
Honorable Minister of Public Service.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the committee rise, the House resume, and the presiding member reports to the Honorable House.
Honorable members, the question is that the committee rise and the presiding member reports to the Honorable House. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable members, I have the honor to report that a bill for an act to provide for the payment of retirement benefits to Janice May McDonald, Senior Library Assistant, has passed the committee stage without amendment. Honorable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I move that a bill for an act to provide for the payment of retirement benefits to Janice May McDonald, Senior Library Assistant, be read a third time by title and passed.
Honorable members, the question is that a bill for an act to provide for the payment of retirement benefits to Janice May McDonald, Senior Library Assistant, be read a third time by title and passed. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Janice May McDonald Pension Declaration Act 2021. Item number 5, Courts of Justice Fees Bill 2021.
Madam Speaker,
Honorable
honorable
Prime
members,
Minister. Yes.
I beg to move a bill for an act to make provision for the methods of payment of court fees and percentages for the establishment of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Improvement and Administration Fund and for connected purposes. The objects and reasons for the bill, they are contained within the long title. Just read. Seconded, Madam Speaker.
Yes. Honorable members, the question is, that's a bill for an act to make provision for the methods of payment of court fees and percentages for the establishment of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Improvement and Administration Fund and for connected purposes be read a first time. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, I beg to move under Standing Order 48-2 that this bill be taken through all its stages at today's sitting.
Honorable members, the question is that this bill be taken through all stages at this sitting in accordance with Standing Order 48-2. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I want to make one broad point.
Honorable Prime
Oh, sorry,
Minister, the second
Madam
reading.
Speaker.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill for an act, its short title being the Courts of Justice Fees Act. The long title having been read before, it will be read a second time.
Honorable members, the question is that a bill for an act, which may be cited as the Courts of Justice Fees Act, be read a second time. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. Yes, the ayes have it. Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just want to say that this bill is brought to this honorable House against the backdrop of a series of reforms dealing with the administration of justice. I don't want to go into the series of those reforms, only to make that point. And if that is required, I can always provide in my winding up further information in that regard. But specifically, in this, since the elections, since the fifth mandate of this government, Madam Speaker, in this calendar year, this is the second bill which is coming to the House addressing importantly the financing of the judicial system, financing of the administration of justice. Madam Speaker, you may recall the bill which we brought, the Regional Institutions Automaticity of Financing Bill. And for the financing of 10 regional institutions, among them the Supreme Court. The funding for the Supreme Court now is $2-point-something million a year. It's in the budget. It's in the estimates. And the costs are growing. And in addition to those costs, Madam Speaker, we undertake to make payments outside of that general frame by, for instance, when we hired, Madam Speaker, through the Judicial and Legal Services Commission, we requested a second criminal court judge so we could have a second criminal court. Unfortunately, during the time of COVID, it hasn't done as much work as anticipated. That's a separate issue. Just talking about what was done. So we want to make sure that there is a pot of money through the automaticity of financing mechanism. And that law authorizes the Director General of Finance and Planning and the Accountant General to do certain things in terms of payments, whether they administratively, Madam Speaker, they do it every month, every quarter, every half year, every year. They tend to do it every quarter. But that is what the 1 percentage point on the custom service charge goes towards funding. And you remember that we said that that 1 percentage point may give you, depending on the year, broadly, $8, $9, $10 million. But there are also monies which are collected by the Supreme Court. And this bill applies to the High Court and the Court of Appeal. And we'll set up a fund. And this bill describes how that fund is going to be set up, how it's going to be run, and all the mechanisms in it. And Madam Speaker, this bill, the Chief Justice is encouraging the member countries of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court to pass it. And we are obliging because we think it's good public policy. And as I lay out the provisions, honorable members and the general public who are listening would see. So I want to address, having dealt briefly with that backdrop, the terms of the bills, the terms of the bill itself. It's a relatively short bill with a preliminary part and 3 other parts, so there are 4 parts with 17 sections, 17 clauses. Part 1, as usual, Part 1 contains Clause 1 and Clause 2. These are preliminary provisions concerning the short title and the commencement and the interpretation provisions. The first, what I want to draw your attention to, Madam Speaker, is that this act will come into force on a date to be appointed by the Governor General by proclamation. So even after the Governor General assents to it, it would not be the law until it is proclaimed, because several administrative mechanisms have to be put in place, as you'd appreciate, Madam Speaker. But unless the bill is passed, you wouldn't get those administrative mechanisms put in place so that the operation of the bill would be efficacious. And of course, Clause 2 deals with the interpretation of particular words and phrases. The fund in this case means the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Improvement and Administrative Fund established under Section 14, Clause 14 of this bill. Part 2 contains the clauses 3, 4, and 5. Clause 3 will empower the Chief Justice and two other judges of the Supreme Court to make the rules to fix the fees to be paid in the courts and the court offices. Clause 4 provides the methods of payment of court fees. The methods will include credit cards, debit cards, cash, check. Payment may also be made, still permissible, in stamps, where it is not feasible to pay by any of the prescribed methods. Clause 5 seeks to allow the Chief Justice to issue practice directions regarding the procedure for the acceptance of payment by any method prescribed in the bill and the manner of evidencing proof of payment by any method other than stamps. And it is very important to note, Madam Speaker, the details which we go through in Part 3 dealing with stamps, and the provisions are set out in clauses 6 to 13. Clause 6 provides the statements made in stamps shall be impressed or adhesive. The clause will give distribution powers for stamps to the Accountant General or such other authorized public officers. Clause 7 prescribes the manner for fixing the stamps. Clause 8 will require a document to be fully stamped to the amount of the prescribed fee before being presented where necessary for the signature of an officer of the court. The clause is also to instruct the officer of the court who is responsible for signing any document to satisfy himself or herself in that regard. Clause 9 is a very important provision evidentially, because it provides that except where the document is to be used in any criminal trial or inquiry as evidence in relation to a charge for an offense under the Act, an unstamped document shall not be received, filed, used, or be admissible in evidence in the courts. The provision will allow the court, if it thinks fit, to order the party who filed the document to pay the amounts outstanding in addition to any penalty or otherwise that the court may direct. Clause 10 makes provision for the cancellation of stamps, and Clause 11 provides for the custody of stamped documents. Clause 12 provides that any person who forges a stamp shall be liable to be imprisoned for a term not exceeding 10 years. Clause 13 will empower the Chief Justice, together with two other judges of the Supreme Court, to make rules for regulating the use of the stamps. Part 5, which is the final part, contains clauses 14 to 17, deals with the provisions relevant to the establishment of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Improvement and Administration Fund, hereinafter known as the Fund. Clause 14 will establish the fund and Clause 14 gives the Minister of Finance regulation-making powers with respect to the fund. The clause also provides that monies in the fund are to be kept separate from monies of any of other special fund. Clause 15 sets out the purpose of the fund, and such purpose will include the training of court staff, purchasing of court equipment, maintaining and repairing of court facility, the support of special projects approved by the Chief Justice in consultation with the Minister of Finance, the payment of the annual contribution of St. Vincent and Grenadines to the Supreme Court, and any other purpose authorized by the Chief Justice in consultation with the Accountant General. So the Director of Finance and Director General of Finance and Planning, the Minister of Finance, shouldn't be worried about losing any fees, because that will just be taken into account in relation to what is our assessed contribution. Clause 16 proposes the resources of the fund, and Clause 17 will provide for the rendering of statements of accounts to the registrar, by the registrar to the Accountant General after the end of each quarter, and annual statements made to the Minister of Legal Affairs. Madam Speaker, this is intended to be a bill common. to the countries within the participating countries, and it has the imprimatur of the Office of the Chief Justice. So I don't expect us to be quarreling here today with this, with the Chief Justice. I want to say, Madam Speaker, that the Chief Justice has been seeking to be a reforming Chief Justice and continuing in the tradition of those who had gone before, including former Chief Justice Byron and Acting Chief Justice Saunders. And just as I sit down, Madam Speaker, to give an indication as to a further innovation, I don't think she would think that I'm not letting any thing out, letting any tail out of school. I received a letter from the Honorable Chief Justice on the 20th of September, 2021. The Honorable Prime Minister, I'm pleased to take this opportunity to advise you that we are now at the final stages of the implementation of the e-litigation portal, known simply as the portal, for all High Court, civil, and Court of Appeal matters in the member states and territories of the jurisdiction of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. The last member state to commence the use of this portal, because she had been rolling it out in the other countries, is St. Vincent and the Grenadines from September the 27th. Presently, the training activity for using this portal is ongoing in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. As part of the implementation of the portal, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court usually hosts a formal launching ceremony where various stakeholders and the media are invited to attend. This launching ceremony has not yet been held for the Commonwealth of Dominica, which commenced use of the portal on the 3rd of August. So they're planning a formal launch the same time for Dominica and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a joint activity for Thursday, the 14th of October. And I'm invited to send either myself to go or to send a nominee. And she makes this point. I wish to also indicate that work is already ongoing for the development of the portal for the use, not only, Madam Speaker, in the High Court, civil and Court of Appeal matters, but also for the development of the portal for use in criminal and family jurisdictions, in both the High Court and the Magistrates Court for all the member states and for the territories which are not independent member states, countries like the Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands, and Anguilla and Montserrat, which are part of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court system. If I can be of any further help to this Honorable House, Madam Speaker, I will seek to do so when I am winding up. I'm obliged.
Further debate? I recognize the Honorable Senator Peters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to lend my voice and to give my support to this bill, the Court of Justice Fees Bill 2021. And as I always do, for the benefit of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I give my reasons for supporting the bills. And I support this bill because it signals an advancement as it relates to the administration of justice in areas such as conducting transactions between the court and members of the public, as well as an improvement of service offered by the court. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister has already given an outline of the bill, and I do not wish to be unduly repetitive, but I consider that there were just a few parts of the bill that I wanted to highlight for public consumption. Madam Speaker, Part 2 of the bill deals with court fees. Part 3 of the bill deals with stamps. And Part 4 of the bill deals with the establishment of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Improvement and Administration Fund. And I will briefly take each of them in turn. As it relates to court fees, Madam Speaker, having practiced for 10 years, I have learned a lot. I have met many clients from many socioeconomic backgrounds, and I have advised clients on matters, and as lawyers, we are required to advise clients on the fees that are payable as well. Now, to John Public, any fee that the client has to pay is referred to as the lawyer fee. But I felt it necessary to make the distinction between the fees that are payable by clients who are seeking to access justice in the courts. You have your court fees, which this bill is in relation to, and then you have your legal professional fees. And your legal professional fees are the fees that your lawyer will dictate based on the work that the lawyer does. So in advising, in consulting, in appearing in courts, in drafting your arguments, those will fall under legal professional fees. But we have court fees, and court fees are equally important. And I would think more so important for members of the public to access justice. So when a lawyer sits down with you and advises you on the fees, and he tells you that the court fees are X amount of dollars, please make the effort to pay the said court fees. Because the court fees don't go to the lawyer, they are paid to the court. And the Honorable Prime Minister has outlined how the fees work in assisting the development of the court in its delivery of services. I have heard countless times where lawyers would complain that I have not filed a document because my client has not come in to pay his or her fees. As I've said before, if your lawyer has asked you to pay your court fees, please believe and understand that it is important. And I'll tell you why it's important. As a litigant, just as your lawyer is responsible for the conduct of your case, you too have responsibility. So when the judges give an order that certain documents are to be filed by a certain time, if you don't file them by a certain time, you may be subjected to sanctions. Sanctions could be monetary, so that's more money coming out of your pocket. If you are late and if your lawyer is late in filing your documents, and sanctions may give you the hardest blow to your case. For instance, if you have to file a witness statement by a certain time, the civil procedure rules are very clear that if you fail to file your witness statements on time, that witness statement cannot be used in trial. And as a litigant, you do not ever want to put yourself in that situation where you are unable to rely on the evidence of your witnesses. So I will make this call on behalf of my colleagues of the legal sorority, because the women are taking over, to pay your fees when asked by your lawyers. Madam Speaker, the power to fix the fees, as the Prime Minister said, is the power that is entrusted with the Chief Justice and 2 other judges of the court as they are appointed. So, for the avoidance of doubt and to clarify, the government doesn't fix court fees. That is the responsibility of the court justice, the Chief Justice, sorry. And that's something that we should be cognizant of when we refer to court fees. I know there have been instances where lawyers, we have been very vocal about some of the fees that are applicable to filing. Some of the fees may be a bit prohibitive for clients, and we have voiced our opinions. And I'm hoping that going forward, there would be some sort of consultation, because we appreciate that the socioeconomic circumstances for each country in the Eastern Caribbean is different. So I would hope that those things would be borne in mind. Madam Speaker, I've spoken about the sanctions, and I will also add on that there is an additional charge where you apply to be relieved from the sanctions. Simply put, you ask the court, my lord, my lady, please forgive me, my filing was late because of X, Y, and Z. These are my reasons, and if the court is satisfied, the court will relieve you from such sanctions. But just the thought of having filed the application, you have to pay more money in other court fees to file, plus lawyer fees for appearing for that particular application. So I am encouraging members of the Vincentian public, for those of you who have matters in court currently and who may be listening, if your lawyer told you you need to pay your fees to have these documents filed and processed, please attend the chambers and pay them. It's your case and you have to take some level of responsibility for it. Madam Speaker, as it relates to the payment of the court fees, I am very delighted to see various methods of payment being added. The Prime Minister outlined them: credit card, debit card, cash, check, any other payment method that may be fixed, as well as stamps, which most people normally use. I've teased my colleague, the Honorable Minister of Finance, about our various revenue offices in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that I hope sooner rather than later, we will see payment methods in these revenue offices, different methods. because we need to advance. Madam Speaker, as it relates to practice directions for the procedure on these different payments, the Chief Justice in time will issue said directions, and the lawyers can go through with their clients what they're required to do in order to pay their respective fees for court. Section 6, 7, and 9 speaks to stamps, and that a reminder that they can be used as payment. Section 7 says the stamps must be placed, and it provides that stamps, that documents which require stamps but are unstamped will not be received, filed, used, or be admissible as evidence. Now, I know from time to time, lawyers may have junior clerks, office attendants. This is an area where the lawyers would need to reinforce with their staff that when we are filing documents, we must ensure that all stamps are affixed to the documents, because you do not ever want to be in a situation where you are before the judge, and when the judge is looking at the document you're trying to admit into evidence, it doesn't have the requisite stamps. It's very embarrassing. The Act actually says that if it's by a mistake or inadvertence, the court can grant some time for the stamps to be affixed, but again, you never want to put yourself in that position. Madam Speaker, Part 4 speaks to the fund, the establishment of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Improvement and Administrative Fund. And the Prime Minister has outlined the purpose of the fund, but I think it's important to repeat some of them. Developing of the judicial system, maintaining the court infrastructure, improving access to justice for the citizens of SVG, training of staff, and I will take a pause there. Now, Madam Speaker, over the years, I am happy to say that I've built up a rapport with members of staff of the High Court, the Magistrates Court, the Family Court, all the courts. And I realize in many instances that there is need for training in certain areas. Now, we don't expect the staff to know everything because they're not trained legal professionals, but certain things which can affect filing and the timing of filing and whether certain documents are to be disclosed to the other side or to be accessed by the other side on the court record. These are issues that the staff should receive training on. And I would encourage the registrar of the High Court to review the CPR, and she can decide what areas of the CPR the staff needs to be sensitized on. Madam Speaker, the fund will also purchase court equipment. And equipment now more than ever is very important. Before, we would walk the streets of Kingstown and attend court in person, and we didn't have to worry about whether our computers were getting enough internet signal, whether our client overseas is able to log on. But now these are some of the challenges as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So equipment is very necessary in the administration of justice. So this fund is proven to be very important. Madam Speaker, as it relates to the maintenance and repairs to the court facility, again, the fund will prove to be important in that regard. Currently, where the High Court office is situated, there is not much space left for staff, for the judges, the honorable judges, and for the retention of records. And this administration realizes that. And I am happy to say, because it's no secret, it's been debated many times over, that the Halls of Justice project, which was once an abstract concept to many, still is for some because they don't want to face the reality, that the Halls of Justice project will see the building, the construction of proper court facilities for the benefit of members of staff, for the honorable judges, and for proper record keeping, Madam Speaker. So this government realizes that. And we are well on the way to having that done. Now, the leader of the opposition has been very critical about the halls of justice. And if I could say truthfully, I've been in court a lot over the last 10 years. I haven't seen him frequent that court quite as much, so maybe he doesn't understand and appreciate the limitations of lawyers, the honorable judges, litigants, who may not be able to climb the stairs to access the justice that they so deserve. You have to be in it to know how it feels. Young lawyers, and I have to make reference to this, my former senior Queen's Counsel has made the point, and he is right, that we are doing a disservice to young lawyers because they do not have a proper courtroom facility to develop their skills, their advocacy skills, to practice proper court etiquette. Madam Speaker, I'm sure you've been guilty of this sometimes. We are in this small room, but it's treated as open court, and you're addressing the judge and you're sitting down because sometimes you forget that you're actually in open court and you're supposed to stand when addressing the court. So the fund will go towards maintaining the court facility, and I have to make it clear that the fund is not going to be used to build the halls of justice. We have secured the financing of that by other means. Our friends in Taiwan, the government and people of Taiwan, they have ensured that that will happen. But over time, after the halls of justice is built, the fund will be applicable to it. So I am very much in support of this bill and the establishment of the fund, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the final analysis, as I said, this bill signals advancement. And we heard the Prime Minister say that the Chief Justice is a reforming Chief Justice. I don't know if the fact that she's a woman has something to do with it, because women like to see things get done. But I applaud her and her efforts in getting things done. Madam Speaker, I wish this bill safe passage.
Honorable Member, if you just might, for the purposes of the records,
Yes.
you might want to just indicate what's the name of the Chief Justice.
Just Chief Justice Dame Pereira, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
As I was saying that I wish this bill safe passage through this honorable house, and I am very much obliged, Madam Speaker.
Further debate? No further debate. Honorable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Honorable Minister of State the Honorable Senator Giselle Melissa Peters for her contribution. And in winding up this debate, I would like, Madam Speaker, to say a little bit more on the matter which she raised concerning the construction of a modern court complex, which is called in other circles the halls of justice. The concept, Madam Speaker, of the halls of justice was put on the table during the Chief Justice's tenure, the successor to Acting Chief Justice Saunders. And a particular judge was recruited from, a petition was recruited from Canada, who also had a background in civil engineering. And he had advanced a proposal with the Chief Justice, then Chief Justice at the time. And the idea was to raise monies through certain international NGOs in conjunction possibly with the government of Canada for the construction of quote-unquote halls of justices across this region, the sub-region. For several reasons, that didn't pan out. And the area which we were contemplating from that time was the area where we acquired the property, what is known as the Marcus de Freitas property. And that is where we are going to put the court complex, including the High Court. So this had a genesis going way back. In 2019, in August, and I'm giving shorthand versions. I'm giving today what will be called in some circles the King James Version, not the Maccabees. In 2019, I persuaded the president of Taiwan to provide us with the facility to secure a soft loan for $20 million US, with two components. As near as possible, $10 million US for a Parliament building, and $10 million for the court complex, US. And that the location which is suggested for the Parliament is the property which was purchased by the National Insurance Services next to the Marcus de Freitas property known as Archbishop Woodruff Residence. In order, however, to get there, Madam Speaker, we had to build, as part of the Parliament project, because they're twinned, part of the Parliament project, we had to build a facility out at Kaliakwa. We purchased the land from a gentleman who is a distinguished national, Mr. Joel Providence. We had to persuade him to sell us the land. To put this facility, first we thought maybe we'd have a timber facility, Madam Speaker. But when the numbers were done, because lumber is now so expensive that it was felt that if you did it with lumber, it may end up even costing more. The quantity surveyors were at work with that. So we say we will do the building with wall. It would have aesthetic features for the Caribbean. And at the conclusion, when the Parliament would be housed there temporarily and would be moved, when we complete the new Parliament building, and that facility would be used to house students, particularly from the community college, but some from Fifth Form. And the idea is to put it in the hands of a church denomination or a group of denominations to manage it, because we don't want to manage it. But, Madam Speaker, this building, which includes the courthouse downstairs and judges' room, where you would have matters in chambers and a small administrative setup, that we would, when that building is completed, to house the Parliament temporarily out in Kaliakwa, as part of the whole project, we will do a complete rehabilitation of this building, which would be quite expensive. Madam Speaker, you remember there was a road march last year from the budget going down to the election. How is that necessary? Parliament building. They didn't say we divide the money 10 million, US, as near as practicable. They said $20 million for a parliament. They say it's Ralph ego. Everything is about Ralph, Madam Speaker, when I'm dead, they're going to still argue about me. They're going to still curse me while I'm in the grave. You hear me? They're so obsessed with me, they go still argue about me. Yes. Answer will bring the message, give me, as old people say. Answer will bring it, give me. No. Madam Speaker, this building, I told everybody who wanted to hear. They wouldn't want to listen. We've patched this thing up for the last 20 years, upstairs and downstairs. I said there is a certain limit to which you can patch the building, because this building has been here long, long years. You know the 1935 riots? Happened, the spark was outside of this courthouse, the uprising. This building existed long before then, since the 19th century. This is an old building. I am sorry to say, Madam Speaker, that it wasn't kept, it couldn't keep itself together, that you had to put a proposal, you and Madam Clerk, to me as the minister responsible and as leader of the house. If you can go and rent a building out in Villa to house the staff, because what the staff had there, it was falling apart around them, and you couldn't ask for people to continue to work in those situations. But they wouldn't listen, you know. They tell me, it's here for so long, it could continue. Well, the workers themselves said we couldn't continue. And I gave the approval for the building. I haven't gone to see it yet, Madam Speaker. And with all the requisite other things to be done with it, I asked Minister Francis and some public officials to go and review it, and they reported to me, and they concurred with you and the Madam Clerk that it was suitable for the offices. So the offices are out there, except when Parliament meets, you have to bring your skeleton staff here to support the Parliament. I'm hoping that this holds together for another 10 months, because the contract has been awarded for the construction of the temporary, well, to host the Parliament temporarily, because the building would be permanent. And that, Madam Speaker, they start, the fence it around already, and they're doing the work on the ground. They're doing foundation work. And I think they say 10 months. But when the builders tell you 10 months and everybody tell you 10 months, I usually add on a 2 or 3 months onto it. You know how that goes. In the meantime, Madam Speaker, a technical committee dealing with the Parliament and the Courthouse, including the committee having visited other places in the region. And we have skilled people in it. We have had discussions as to what the Parliament would look like. There have been similar discussions as to what the courthouse, the court complex would look like. I had to give these additional details and talk about them together, Madam Speaker, because it was presented as one to the Taiwanese. We have approved, we did the negotiations with the bank in Taiwan, the Exim Bank, which the Taiwanese government put us in, because there are arrangements in relation to the interests and ourselves with Taiwan, and the agreement shows it. We brought the agreement here, it was passed. We have done everything, Madam Speaker, on the financing side. It may well require some additional monies because they're 2 big projects, and this one here will take a lot of money, this building, because we're going to break it down. It has to be restored properly. I don't want us to be in the category of barbarians. Though some people may say, knock it down and put up. I don't want a big set of glass, modern architecture with the glass and all this other thing. We have to have some things. Particularly, we must have a balance between what is here and that structure over there, the tongue. The one which they built, the vegetable market, which contribute to the uglification of the city immensely. But what are you going to do? You can't break it down because it's there. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this Honorable House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause.
Clause 2, that clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 3, that clause 3 stands part of the bill. Clause 4, that clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 5, that clause 5 stands part of the bill. Clause 6, that clause 6 stands part of the bill. Clause 7, that clause 7 stands part of the bill. Clause 8, that clause 8 stands part of the bill. Clause 9, that clause 9 stands part of the bill. Clause 10, that clause 10 stands part of the bill. Clause 11, that clause 11 stands part of the bill. Clause 12, that clause 12 stands part of the bill. Clause 13, that clause 13 stands part of the bill. Clause 14, that clause 14 stands part of the bill. Clause 15, that clause 15 stands part of the bill. Clause 16, that clause 16 stands part of the bill. Clause 17, that clause 17 stands part of the bill. Honorable Prime Minister.
Madam Chairperson, I beg to move.
Sorry.
Sorry, clause 1.
Clause 1, that clause 1 stands
Short
part of the bill, the short title and commencement. Yes. Yes, Honorable Prime
Madam
Minister.
Chairperson, I beg to move that the committee rise, the House resume, and the presiding officer report to this honorable House.
Honorable members, the question is that the committee rise and the presiding member report to the Honorable House. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.